Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is the Nicholas Persakis Chelsea channel, and today is a little bit of a different video. I did this a few times over the last few months. I've graded how I think the players have done so far throughout the season. I did it every international break we've had so far. Of course, I'll do it again when we have the next international break. But what today I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a review of the first, I guess you could say, 6 months of the season, since tomorrow is the 1st of January. I figured I would just start with doing that. I think that basically separating it as a first half to second half, then we could separate it, do January 1st to the end of the season, I think makes more sense. So that's what we're going to do in this one. I'm going to be basically using a tier list picker, by grading them, to show how I think the players have done. Some may be surprising, some aren't surprising, but that's just how it's going to work. Let's hop straight into it, see what we got cooking. So here is the tier list picker I've got set up. I already have thrown in Bettinelli, Hutchison, and Chilwell, as they have gotten basically zero game time. Hutchison, of course, has been injured. Ben Chilwell, of course, played 45 minutes, but he's on his way out, so I figured just put him in. And Bettinelli's here for vibes, so I figured just don't even put him in the mix. It's not even worth it. So, getting into the first player on the list is Benoit Badiashile. I don't think Benoit Badiashile has been horrific as years pass. Of course, he made a lot of mistakes last season when it came to self-prone errors, not good defensive plays. The only thing that's really saved him at times is his passing ability. That has looked consistently good throughout his time here at Chelsea. But even then, that can't save him. He's been pretty mediocre this season, and I don't think anything about last season transitioning into this year has really helped him out too much. I think he sticks with a D. I don't think it's been a horrific. I think it's not been an F, but it's not been good enough. I think he sticks at a D. Moises Caicedo, this is where we stick the first A graded. Moises Caicedo, since January of last season till now, his 2024 campaign has been incredible. That price tag does not, absolutely does not, it does not show in him anymore. He doesn't listen. He doesn't listen to what the fans used to be saying about this guy, or anybody surrounding any fan bases say about this guy. He is an absolute monster on the field. There's a reason that I think if you look on the Premier League's Instagram list for Premier League Team of the Player or 2024 campaign season, he's on that list with Rodri. He is probably amongst the top 3 probably best defensive midfielders in the world, and he's probably playing at the highest level. Of course, the last few games you can maybe say discredit him, but it's a team sport, and I think that he's been pretty solid even in the losses. Cesare Casade, I think that obviously, as we know, he's about to go on loan, or maybe he's about to be sold. It looks like Torino are on the top of the list right now. It looks like they said it's supposed to be like a Nico Paz-esque deal where he'll be sold and there'll be like a buyback clause for Chelsea. I think that this is a one for Cesare Casade, that he hasn't been horrific, but with limited game time, it's been a pretty rough spell. I don't think he's necessarily been bad, but I think it's one I have to be a little bit harsh with, since even in the game time he hasn't shown enough. I think it's another D. I could easily put this as a C. I think I will give it a C. I think a C is fair enough. He's been pretty okay in the conference league games he got. He hasn't gotten a sniff of Premier League time, and I just think it's unfortunate. But now what he's going to do is either going to go on loan, he's going to be able to prove himself, or he's going to get sold and a little buyback. I think that's the best course of action for his career, hopefully the best to him, so we'll see what happens here in January. Carney Chukwuemeka, this is a very saddening one, but I'm going to go ahead and put him at the top of the F category. It's just been a rough season for him. He's gotten maybe 200 minutes of footy for 6 months now. He really should have decided to go out on loan. The club should have loaned him out or sold him in the summer. I feel so poorly for this guy, that the fact that he just couldn't get anything going. They couldn't get him anything moving for him, and no clubs, I don't know if any clubs came in for him, but this is just a guy who's had to rot on the bench. And it's so sad because he's so talented. But he's going to be a guy now that they're saying Chelsea want $40 million. They want his release clause value for him, and he's probably worth it if he's healthy. But he's not going to be healthy here, and I just don't think it's been good enough. So for that reason alone, I think I'm going to put Carney in right there in the F category. It's just not been good enough. Colwill, I think this is a tough one, because a little bit earlier in the season, I would have been giving him probably close to an A because of how productive he was. Him and West looked amazing. I feel as though I don't know. I'm really stuck. I'm going to give him a B. The reason I'm going to give him a B is I think that he's been consistent enough in the early stages to now at the point where I can't discredit him for the games now in these last three, I guess you can kind of say. I think the last three have been mediocre. I think he's still building. He's been staying consistently healthy. I think it's okay to give him that grade. I don't think it's a very, very big, massive negative to think. I think that his passing has just been so great. His line breaking pass has been so great. And having a decent partner, I think it helps him out, and we're going to be getting to his partner pretty shortly. Cucurella, which one? Which one? It's an A or a B. And do I think he's been at the Caicedo high level? I think I might just do something like this. It's like a B+. He's the top of the B tier. He's been proving himself as a massive part of this Chelsea team this season. And I think he's so damn important to the point where we saw how we needed him in the Everton game. And then since then, it may look bad, but I think he is just such a massive part of this formation. And of course, we've seen the lack of tactical switch in these last few games, but this is just something from Cucurella that is so important, and Maresca knows it. Because once he benched him a few months back for Malo Gusto to get that playing time with Reece James and switching all that stuff, we never understood it. But we now know how important he is, and Maresca understands how important he is. That's why he's at the top of the B tier. I think that he's been just so incredible that it's basically one that you got to give him credit for, and I think that he's been able to show his class since the Euro final, or the Euros, I guess I should say. Dewsbury Hall, this is another D. I think that this signing is lining up to be another one like Danny Drinkwater. We all said it before it even happened, which is the scary part. And he's only getting playing time in Conference League games. He's gotten into the game time in Premier League games, but this has just simply not been good enough. I mean, there was nowhere for this guy to even fit in. Now, he's injured. Once he's injured now, a guy who probably could have been a good rotational piece for these Premier League games can't even get the rotational time in the Premier League now because of his injury. It's very tough on a guy like him because it's so sad because you really hope that this guy would be going to play a good piece. But we sold guys like Conor Gallagher to get this guy in. Why did we need him if we had Connor? Connor would have fit, I think, this tactic perfectly fine. He presses well. He showed at times he can get up the field well. I never understood it. Kieran gets a D. Not much to talk about with him. Hopefully he could change his season around with more playing time. Axel Disasi, it's an F. I would have been giving him an F if it weren't for the last game. And it might be recency bias. I understand. I understand. But I can't just put it out there and say we know how poor he's been even all throughout this season so far. He hasn't made the mistake as clear as day yesterday, but this entire season he hasn't necessarily looked good. He scores the odd set piece goal, but that's about all he does. You can't tell me he's done a certain amount of good things for us this season. It hasn't happened. It strictly hasn't happened. So for that reason alone, I think we're all saying the same thing about it. I don't think that any of us necessarily want him to be here. I know I'm a fan that doesn't want him to be here in January. There's a lot of things saying he might get sold, and it might be in his best effort to get sold because he might get playing time. There's a lot of links to him going to Bayer Leverkusen. I think he would do extremely well at Bayer Leverkusen. I think he'd be a great replacement for someone like Jonathan Tah. I heard a lot of people have been saying Jonathan Tah would be a great replacement here at Chelsea. I think he's too similar to someone like Tosin. But he's an older guy and he's a lot of experience, Jonathan Tah, so maybe he'd be good. But that's enough on him. Disasi gets an F. I can't even get mad anymore. I spent all my mad energy yesterday. I'm just trying to get it out. Joao Felix. This is a tough one. This is a tough one for the main reason being that I don't think he's necessarily been awful. But I think the fact is he's been great in Conference League games. There's Premier League games he's came in and he's looked great, but the limited playing time has really made him suffer. I think a C grade is what he deserves to get for right now. I think that players have been better than him, yes, but I think that the limited rotation has really stifled his growth here, and this is just another thing where Maresca's he gave him another shot. He didn't do it. He didn't perform up to standard yesterday. Of course, like we're saying the entire season so far, but this is just one where I haven't liked how he's played, and most of us probably haven't liked how he's played. So I think that Joao Felix gets a C. We know his talent's there. So he's got to somehow step up and show he can become maybe a guy who could sneak into this formation and get more playing time. So for now, it's a C, but I'm really hoping he could prove us wrong. Enzo Fernandez. Now, at the beginning of this season, I was giving him very poor grades. I was giving him like 5s before international breaks. If I did this video maybe 3 games ago, I probably would be giving him maybe the A grade. But I'm going to give him a B. The reason is the last 3 games have... I can't count the Everton game. Enzo Fernandez looked great in the Everton game. But the last few performances I think have been mediocre. I think the beginning half of his season was a little bit too mediocre and not showing enough flash for me to get him in the A tier. I think that's really the only reason I wouldn't be giving him the A right now. There was the November stretch, in the end of October stretch that Enzo Fernandez was giving was brilliant. Here at the end of December and the beginning half of the season before he got to that stretch was just too much, I think, on his overall rating for this. So I think on the B tier is fine for now. We know he's been quality this season. Most of the Chelsea players have been quality this season. But there's going to be the odd ones that I have to make sure I look at. And Enzo Fernandez had a brilliant, basically 2.5 months span. But the rest of it was kind of mediocre. And that's why I can't put him any higher than the B tier. Wesley Fofana. Now, if we look at how our defensive stability has been without Wesley Fofana in the mix, how would we say it is? I would say that we have been much more defensively lacking since Wes got injured 100%. 100%. That's why Wes goes in the A. Now, it might be on the low A tier, and a lot of you guys might be saying, what are you doing? Wes can't be in the A tier. He's not as good as these guys. Have we been watching the same games since Wes got injured? We've looked a lot more vulnerable at the back. These last few games, especially the one yesterday, we just looked so much worse defensively. The partnership of Colwill and West looked so much more secure. With having them two playing, it's not even a question. I think West was so important. We all understand it more than ever why West was getting the game time immediately over so many other players. And it's so easy to see why Colwill and Fofana were doing pretty well defensively at the first half of this season. And since he got injured, Tosin's done okay, but the last few games we've just seen why Tosin shouldn't be a guaranteed starter, and he should be maybe the 3rd or 4th backup for us. West gets an A. We know why Maresca loves him now. I give him all the credit in the world. Hopefully he comes back whenever that he maybe come back in January. Hopefully he comes back and he's giving us the same type of play because he was brilliant before his injury. Mark Guiu. This is an interesting one. I've loved how Mark Guiu has played in his limited minutes. Now, do I think it's been good enough to credit him more starts? Probably. I think it's a B because I think that Mark Guiu has played really, really well in his limited time in the Conference League. He was a top scorer, of course, in the Conference League, tied, I think, with Nkunku. But the minutes played, he's done it in way less minutes played. It's one of those ones where I think Maresca doesn't want to loan him out. He thinks he should spend more time here at the first team, and I can see why. I think Mark Guiu's been brilliant. I think he needs more playing time. I think he stays in that B. Malo Gusto. I think it's a D. He's been so much worse than he has in previous seasons past. I think this is one you have to look at it and be like, what has happened to Malo, man? I think the tactics have changed him. I think he's just in a rough patch of form. It's one that I really wish I can change and really, really give him a higher rating, but I haven't been able to. I can't do it. Something about how this guy has played has just not been anywhere near the standard we saw last season. We were making videos about him being a top 5 right back in the Prem. I can't even say he's a top 15, top 20 right back right now. This guy, well, top 15, top 20 is a stretch. I think top 15 right back right now. I think that in the Premier League, he's been probably top 15, not top 5, top 15. And I think it's really saddening because I think that probably the tactics, probably a mixture with other guys playing his position, with Reece James coming back, it's probably affected him a little bit. And I don't want to say we should sell him because that's not going to happen unless for some reason he wants out. But I don't think that it's gonna. I think that he sticks in a D. I don't think it's been a horrible season because he's had good times at moments, especially like that Tottenham game. But this is one where I have to give him that. Nicholas Jackson, I think for right now, he as well has to stay in the A tier. I think that it's been too productive of a season for him for me to discredit these last few games. Now, I easily could put him at the top of B tier. if I'm gonna put Enzo in the B tier, then I think I have to put Nicholas Jackson there. I'm gonna put him back in the B. I really wanted to put him in the A tier, but the last few games in poor finishing has made me discredit. He's been very, very good. Don't get me wrong. He's almost got 10 goals in the Premier League this season. He's got a few assists to go along with it. Him and Cole Palmer have been an incredible duo. But Nicholas Jackson's finishing, it's improved. But it's not improved to the level we wanted it to be. He's made great runs, but sometimes there's just the finishing that is a problem with this guy. His finishing has just been the main crux of his career as a Chelsea player this season. And of course, we know he's only been a striker for about a year and a half. He became a striker somewhat, maybe 2 years ago with Villarreal, with Unai Emery. And, since then, he's looked like he can develop it very well, and he's played it, and he's done it really well. But he's not at that level of finishing yet. He's not a poacher in the box. He's not a guy who's going to give you the goal that you need in the box at times. So Nico Jackson gets basically a B+ for me. I think he's been very good. I don't think it's been one I can discredit. Now, Reece James, he just got back, of course, from Ipswich. Did not play in that game, as probably none of us would have wanted him to as well. There's a chance he could be starting on Saturday. There's a chance he could come off the bench on Saturday. Now, do I think that will happen? I think it will happen. I don't know if he'll start, but I think he will play. Now, I think that Reece's season is another D. I easily could have given this one an F as well because of his limited game time, but Reece looked fantastic when he played. He didn't give us a bad game in the games he was playing in. Of course, since his injury, he's been out for another 2 months or something. It was his injury, or 1.5 months. It's good to have him back, but this has just been another season where it's just been injuries. This is a guy that you'd thought maybe had a chance to play at least 75% of the games, but when's the last time Reece James played more than 50% of the games in a season? 3 years ago? You just can't depend on this guy to be healthy anymore. So he gets a D, hopefully, even though it's impossible. This is the last of his injuries for the rest of the season. It's such a massive ask, but he's going to stay in the D tier for me. Even with his good play in the 5 or 6 games he was in for, it just wasn't enough. He sticks in the D tier. Jorgensen. Now, I think Jorgensen's a hard one to grade because I think I've loved how he's played in the conference. I'm going to give him a B. I think the low end of the B tier, I think, is a very fair grade. I think I've been fantastically happy with his Conference League play. Even the Premier League play, even in the 2-0 loss yesterday to Ipswich, I thought he was still okay. I don't think he made many mistakes. I think that this is one where it's your fan opinion yourself, to be honest. I think that it goes either way. I think it could have easily been a one where, you could have said to yourself, Jorgensen, maybe it wasn't worth spending all that money on him. But if you look at how Robert Sanchez has played and how other teams or how the players compare themselves, I think the players also agree that Jorgensen is a better ball-playing goalie, and he fits the tactic more. And I think I've loved the way he's played more to the fact of this ball-playing goalie than Maresca. I just don't understand why he doesn't play him more. And we saw in the match yesterday that he was getting the players were giving him the ball more because they trust him more. So I think a low-end B tier is fine. Romeo Lavia, I'm going to give him a C. I think a D is closer, but I think a C is where I'm going to put him at. I think this is one where it's really tough. It's really, really tough. I think that his injuries have become a massive issue that we don't even know what his current injury really is. No one has said anything about it. He all of a sudden was just out of the lineup, and there was no emphasis on what his injury was. The media hasn't asked questions about it. There was no questions even for this Ipswich game whether he'll be back. There's no question whether he'll be back for the next game. If he is back for the next game, he won't start it. He'll come off the bench. There isn't enough rotation in the midfield. He gets a C for right now. He's brilliant when he's on the field, but when he's not, he's not. Noni Madueke, I think it's a high C. I've loved at times how Noni has played. I think it's a little harsh for me to not give him a B, but there's been times where he's been so mediocre that I could see why the club made the purchases of guys like Willian Esteval. Or Esteval Willian. I think you say Willian Esteval if you're from Brazil, but I don't know. And then you have Kendrick Paez coming in. You have all these young guys coming in who are going to be able to play in his position, and Noni Madueke at stretches has just not been the same player. And it's been an exact reason why he's been dropped at times. His lack of training, discipline, the lack of showing up on time, I guess, to team meetings, it's been showing. And a high C, I think, is what he gets right now. And then Mudryk, it's an F. It's an F. He was brilliant in the Conference League this season. At times, showed decent flashes in the Prem. Probably would have gotten maybe a low C if it weren't for this whole doping scandal. It's an F for the doping scandal reasons. If it turns out to be true, he's going to be suspended for a long, long time. Maresca has said his Chelsea career is not over, but we beg to differ. We beg to differ. He's going to get replaced. He won't play. It's 2 years of his career probably that aren't going to come back, and he's going to be 26 by that point or something. He's going to be past his prime, past his development, not getting any game time. It's basically over for him. He gets an F. Pedro Neto, I've loved his signing of Pedro Neto. I think it's a B, low B tier grade right now. I think at times he's looked special. In the last few games, none of our wingers have necessarily looked brilliant whatsoever, but I think that this is a signing that is important to Chelsea. He's been a better Noni Madueke in times. He's been able to beat his man more. His crossings look brilliant. He's been helped out on defense really well. The only thing I haven't liked is his flopping ability. Pedro Neto's been a big flopper these last few games, and I haven't loved to see it. He tried to sell a head injury now, I think, in 2 games in a row. The Fulham one made me even worse, mad-wise. But his pace has been so important on the wing, and his ability to fill on a defense has been so important. So Pedro Neto gets a low B. Christo Nkunku gets a D. It's incredible to say he gets a D as the amount of goals he's scored in the Conference League, and he's one of the most top goal scorers in our Chelsea team this season. But the problem with it is that he's done almost none of it in the Premier League, which matters. And which matters is the Premier League games. In the Premier League games he's played in, he's looked slow, he's looked sloppy, and none of us have liked it at all. I know I'm a fan right now who has not had anything good to say about Christo Nkunku so far in his time at Chelsea. I mean, maybe in the first 6 months before he got injured. Maybe. And then the last when he played at the end, we were all excited to come back. And then since then, he has looked sloppy, he's looked lazy. I haven't liked him, and I think his time at Chelsea may be over this January. Cole Palmer, it's an A. Best player at the club for a reason. He's been another incredible season. At times, he's looked like he's gotten a little bit worse, and of course, because that's the players around him are doing more for him. It's not the same team as last year, so his numbers are going to be a little bit worse, but he's still putting up incredible numbers. Cole Palmer is Cole Palmer. He's incredible. Robert Sanchez, I think he gets a C. I think he's been so inconsistent at times this year. We've said multiple occasions that he's not Chelsea quality, and I still live up to that opinion. I think that he hasn't been good enough in a Chelsea jersey. He's going to probably play in the Crystal Palace game on Saturday, and he's got to keep showing some kind of improvement. There's no ball-playing ability as a goalie of him. He just kicks the ball up the field and hopes something happens. That's about all he does. He gets a C. Haven't liked the way he's played. I think Tosin gets a C. I don't think that he's necessarily done enough to replace anybody like West in the lineup. I think that Tosin's been mediocre this season. And there's been really no else way to describe Tosin as well, except he's been an okay fill-in. Not a guy you can depend on, an okay fill-in, an okay backup. Renato Vega, I think, also gets a C. I think that at times in the early part of the season, he looked like a great replacement. But the limited game time since the Conference League games have been over, since the limited game time in the Premier League, there's been no cup games, of course, since we're not in the Carabao Cup games anymore. It's been a limited game time for him, so I can't give him anything more than a C. A loan move would look okay, I think, for him at this point, but he's probably going to be a rotational Swiss Army knife like they've been saying for the rest of the season. I think Vega will be good. And on to the last player. I think Jadon Sancho stays in that B tier. He's been brilliant at times when he's came this season. The ability he's had to break down presses this season, I think, has been massively, massively important. And when you look at this overall tier list, is anybody too surprised? I mean, we're in 4th place. We've had an incredible start of the season compared to we've had in seasons past, but I haven't given out many insane grades. Even with how we've played, maybe it's interesting to see how our lineup really hasn't. Some of the players haven't taken too much of a big stretch. Maybe that's just my bias on certain players, but I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, though. I think this was a pretty decent tier list, to be honest, though, so I'm pretty happy with it. I think that, the players have to build on it. We have to keep this win. We've got to get back in the win column on Saturday, so hopefully we can change a few of these tier lists out for when the upcoming break comes down, or the upcoming next March, I think, break, and March International. I think March International break comes along. So hopefully we'll be able to change it then. See you guys in the next one. Base.